This is Between Hook Sets. I'm Chasen Walter from In Through the Outdoors with my partner in slime, Kurt Underhill from the fishing crew.
What is going on, buddy?
It's been a day. I'm at the river. I'm at Brown's Hunting Lodge, and frankly, I'm in heaven. I mean, really, when it comes right down to it, it's possible that I might just, walk around a little bit, give everybody the view from outside. I think I'll disappear, but you'll be able to see the water. It's awesome out here. Boy, I'll tell you what, it's great to finally be at the river. I've waited an entire spring to finally make it out here. Yeah, I'm super excited. So, I guess there's nothing better than a little bit of heaven.
Yeah, a little live remote from Whitlock's area, a little Brown's Hunting Lodge up there. So, are you?
Well, we may end up having just a little bit of trouble. I can go back inside where the Wi-Fi is, and I can't get in that door. We'll see if we can connect it. If I move around a little bit tonight, I don't know that anybody's absolutely going to care, because we're just kind of having here. I'm going to just do this real quick so everybody can get a gander in here.
Did you catch that walleye on the wall there?
Oh yeah, that 84-incher. That's actually an 84-inch walleye here at Brown's. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's a pretty awesome deal. I could hang out in the kitchen. Does it matter where I'm really at? I could go upstairs to the office and hide. This is the part of Brown's that nobody gets to see this part because, it's the hidden part. It's the office and all that. But it is so cool here. Everything is so different. It's under new management. Louis Valence is here. Molly Olson's here. And these guys have it going on. There's video lottery and there's all kinds of fun stuff. So, it's really neat. I'm glad we got to just be outside for a little bit there, but because it was kind of fun. But let me plop down and get myself back in position. Oh, look at that. There's even a Browns deal there. So we're good. We're going to have a fun time tonight.
Yeah, we got some great guests on tonight. We're going to start with the back-to-back national team championship NTC champions, Scott Rohloff and Lance Busse. And then we're going to roll into a little special thing that we didn't really advertise for, but we got a couple young guns sitting here with me, and we're going to talk to them here in a little bit. But let's not wait much longer, because this next guy, they pretty much caught that 84-inch walleye, because they weighed, 80-some pounds for fish on Green Bay? Is that
Lake Erie, wasn't it?
Lake Erie. Lake Erie. Yeah. Sorry, you won Green Bay the year before. I'm getting my 2 years mixed up there. So,
105 on Green Bay.
what was Green Bay's weight?
105 for 3 days, and this was 80 for 2 days.
105 pounds. So, Scott Rohloff's on with us tonight, and back-to-back NTC champion. And Lance might join us a little later, but wow. Has that ever been done before? Has anybody ever won back-to-back NTCs?
As far as I know, nobody has ever won two, period, but let alone back-to-back. So I believe that we are the first team to ever won two of these.
And what an incredible accomplishment. But before we get into too much of the tournament stuff, let's talk about Scott. How'd you get into fishing? Where you're from? Who you are?
I'm sure like most guys out there, we all got in from our fathers at a young age. My dad was dragging me out when I could, as early as I could remember, 3 years old, and I would be that kid throwing the little tantrum when he would ditch me for his boys or whatever, go fishing. Here I am stuck at home just yelling at mom, this isn't fair, blah, blah, blah. And just the fun times, from the bluegill fishing to the bullheads, and progressively throughout the years. I remember when I first really got into walleye fishing, it was probably when I was 13, 14, and got to experience Winnebago for my first time. But before that, it was always growing up watching like the Bassmasters, seeing all that, saying that's what I want to be when I grow up, and kind of went the other way with the fish with teeth.
Yeah, that's okay.
Right? But
I'm gonna go on a limb and say, by the looks of the background, you made the right venture. I mean,
yeah, I've been blessed throughout the years. Won team of the year in the AIM series, team of the year in the Green Bay Walleye series, won Master Walleye Circuits events, and then obviously the 2 NTC events. So been pretty consistent.
so for people who don't know, the NTC is not the tournament you can sign up for. It stands for National Tournament Champions. You have to qualify the year prior. I'm going to throw a little jab in there. My complaint is they don't tell us early enough where it's going. So it's usually you're kind of fishing. A lot of guys are fishing blind for an event. They don't know where it's going to be, and so when you guys are qualifying for this, now, they announce it at this year's NTC, so we know for next year. But if you're fishing April tournaments, you have no idea where you're going to fish to qualify.
Yeah, that's the part that kind of sucks. I wish you would know right at the beginning of the year and stuff. And like when we qualified for the Green Bay one that we won, we found out where it was from the NTC prior to that earlier in the year. They announced, hey, it's going to be a Menominee. Let's get an event and try this. And we did it with Lance's boat. At the time, I didn't have one. I had mine on order. And sure enough, we went out pre-fishing, found some really good fish. Lance blew his motor.
Ooh.
So here we are, blown motor. We got to get back in a kicker motor. It takes hours to get back, a couple hours. Go out the next day on our kicker motor. Took us a couple hours to get out there, and we proceeded to do 53 pounds on a CRR format.
So wait. You did it all in a kicker motor.
We drove out in the Green Bay to get the launch out. There was this. We launched out of Fairport. It's called up in Michigan. There's a little channel. Big waves are rolling in. And these locals thought we were going to die. The Plato said, "Oh, we're going to be calling Coast Guard, you guys." Lance is in the bow of the boat with the kicker, the bow mount, controlling the nose. I'm in the back operating the kicker motor, and we're sending it.
Wow.
Yep.
Sending it at 4 miles an hour.
Where is that in proportion to Little Sturgeon Bay and Sturgeon Bay? It'd be further north of there, right?
Yes, that would have been like the tip of Big Bay.
Yeah.
There.
Okay.
So did you put baits down immediately, or was it full on mission to get to our fish?
It was. So the coolest thing about that series is it was a trailer event, so we were allowed to drive wherever we wanted to go to launch from that thing. So that's what we did, and then you're allowed to leave as early as you want, get to your spot, and then wait till that 7 a.m. fishing time. Do a video of your boat surroundings, no lines in the water, and then you could start fishing. So we were there at 7 a.m. when we could fish already. Just got up there super early, and it was fun. I mean, didn't take long. Lance was just wailing on them, and like, okay, this is gonna work. And at the end of the day, we had 53 pounds, and we made it in, and we qualified for the Menominee event.
That is so cool.
Right? That's how this whole journey started. It was just the craziest story how this started to how we are right now. It's just.
So did it feel like you couldn't do anything wrong? That everything fell into place every time?
Yeah, it felt like it was meant to be. It just like a higher hand was helping this along. My father passed away a couple of years before this. I took a break, and it's just like, say what you want. I mean, it feels like I have his presence sitting alongside the entire time, every time we're in these events, and yeah, it's in the same thing with the Menominee event. So Lance rebuilt his motor. He's pre-fishing his boat. I'm in my boat, and again, he blows his motor again. So here he is coming back from Chambers to Menominee, couple hours. He's calling me like, "Hey, I'm done. I can't use my boat." And I always said, I think him and I work the best together when we're in the boat together. I mean, he's brilliant with thinking everything out. I'm the guy that just wants to cast a line, catch the fish. He's behind the scenes. He's doing so much homework, everything. And I could never do any of this without Lance as a partner. I mean, we fished like damn near like brothers in a boat. So it's a lot of fun with him. But
now wait a minute though. You were the brains behind the finisher though, right? Aren't you the one that figured that pattern out? And you're the one that caught the big fish that really put you over.
Yeah, the finisher, we tried a bunch of stuff in a week, and then I remember Tommy Kimos, I'm a good friend with him, and he was bragging about using his finisher in the last NTC. And I'm like, God, I wish I would have been able to try that bait. And it came out this year, and we're out there. I'm like, I'll throw this on, drop it on, and it was boom, boom, boom. There was very little hesitation in these fish eating this bait, and the hooking percentage was through the roof for landing these things. So I just kept that. That was my comfort bait. Every place we went, I would throw that first, catch fish, and I would play with other baits. Don't catch them, well, then obviously that's the bait. Got my 2 colors down for the week. Just had one blue, one OG blue, one French pearl, number 9s, and that's all I kept on. I think the OG blue probably caught 200-300 fish on that one bait. Thank God I didn't lose it because I only had one bait.
So okay, so
you said you didn't stop in the week and go buy more.
Like, nobody has these. You cannot find these
they're
baits.
gone.
They're gone. Every place I was looking trying to get these baits, you can't find them. Yes,
Wow.
that's the one. And my one I have is. Oh, I thought it was here somewhere. I'm sure it is.
Yeah, you got to hang that up, right? So
Yeah.
so you said boom, boom, boom. You mean like this? Boom, boom, boom.
Yes, it was one after another every time we see fish, and when we're throwing it, I mean this is the part that sucks for Lance. I felt bad for Lance because he was in the back of the boat running the other live scope, but to get the fish that we wanted in that amount of time, you literally had to hunt down those really big fish. If you would have just put the boat sideways and drifted, you would have caught fish, but you wouldn't have just targeted the giants that we were targeting. And that's what I was doing. I was moving the boat as fast as I could and just dropping the baits on the biggest fish. And
so the thing that I'm learning about live scope and what I learned from you too is that these big fish aren't easily spooked. Like you throw that finisher at a smaller 15 in either 15, 16, 17, 18, they spook and they're gone. But these bigger fish, these 24s, 25s, 26, 27s, and bigger, they just sit there and they just really aren't affected by it until you really piss them off. Is that right? Is that how you see it?
Well, actually, on Erie, none of these fish were spooked. I've never seen anything like this in my life with these fish. I literally had fish out in 40 feet of water, down on the bottom, jigging it, and they would follow it to 10 feet below the boat, and then they would crush it. Like literally 10 feet down below the boat, and they would just absolutely hammer. Most of them would eat it, obviously, right away. There were so many times where that bait would go down, and you still had your bail open, and then the line would just go slack, come right back at you. You just click the bail reel as fast as you could. They had the nose down their throat.
Really?
Well,
and then
let me go out and just ask this and say, do you think the fish acted different because they're so used to this coming by them? Because, jigging and forward-facing sonar on Lake Erie has not really been a thing ever. Like, this is like new this year. Nobody really tries it. It's we're going to put on boards and crawler harnesses, or we're going to put on boards and cranks, and we're going to go.
Here's the perfect example. So during a tournament, we weren't the only ones in this area. There was plenty of guys trolling, plenty of guys jigging. But we had a couple boats that were trolling through our big fish right through there. And these fish they weren't catching them. You pull your bait past, they wanted nothing to do with it. They might track it a little bit. But that's what I saw with these baits. You'd do a pop, then a couple little pops, subtle, and they would track it. But if they didn't take it right away, you had to change your cadence right away, and then it was game over. And that's what the trollers couldn't do. They couldn't get that reaction bite that we could get by doing rod in hand and getting these things to go.
Well, you go to trolling, and I've always jerk the line or do S's or change that speed of that crankbait, but we've never. It's always been kind of we're just going to change that speed, or we're going to do an S, or we're going to, whatever. But now with forward-facing sonar, you're watching these fish trail that guy going by you, and just watch them trail that crankbait, and they're not doing anything to it. And you're putting your bait down there, you do a couple pops, they trail it, then I'm going to change my cadence, and they smack.
Yep, and the other thing was, so these big fish, they're not schooled up like these smaller schools, you'd see these 2, 3, 4 pounders, and they would be 3, 4, 5 together. And every time you saw these really big fish, they were individual by themselves, and they were never at the same water depth. There were some that were 8, 9 feet down, some that were 20 feet down. So you're running boards through there. You got fish staggered all over, so you have maybe one bait coming past them, but then again, you're not getting that reaction out of them, and they're not getting bit. And we saw so many boards. I mean, this one boat nonstop all day, and I think we saw them net one fish. And we come right behind them, see the fish, cast jig, catch them. So,
Yeah.
and Lance, I mean, he played with plastics. Plastics out in the mud early in the week was just as good as the finisher for a while. And
Really?
then for whatever reason happened, once we went shallower, they wouldn't even give their attention to these plastics anymore. Every now and then he could catch them on the depth jig with half a crawler on that and get them to come back to the boat, and they would hammer it that way. But there was nothing that compared to these baits. And I've never seen what's that?
Did you put the traditional jigging wrap at them? Did you do any of that, or was it just I'm grabbing this finisher and I'm going?
So the only bait that I did not try all week was the jigging wrap, and that's one of the first events I've ever won jigging was off a jigging wrap. And not quite sure why I didn't, but I tried some of my favorite baits from back home, the blade baits, the hair jigs, the the Berkeley jerk shads, the Kitex. I mean, every kind of plastic that you could think of, these different baits. And I never once caught a fish all week on a hair jig, which back home it's just lights out. Never had a bite on a blade bait. Again, I've won numerous events on the blade bait. And that's why I can't wait to get this weekend, Memorial Weekend. I'm going to go up to Cedar River. I'm going to play with it up there and see what I can't do with these things.
So did we try Chasen's favorite bait, the credge?
Yeah, right on.
I have not tried the credge, but that definitely has my interest peaked. I've been watching a lot of videos on that, and it looks pretty good.
Well, especially with fish higher in the water column.
Yes.
You should be able to fish that thing at any depth and go to it. I'm trying to remember, was it Billy Atkinson that said they caught 12 walleye over 26 inches high in the water column?
Yep.
Yeah, was
perfect.
Yeah. So, and that's the crazy thing about the live scope or the live sonar. We find out that walleye just don't live on the bottom anymore. They are down there. I think if you're hunting the big walleye, they're predominantly on the bottom. Lake Erie's a whole different monster. If you're going to have a 28-incher or a 30-incher, in 8 feet of water when you're fishing in 20 feet of water, I don't know that we're going to see that back home, but or the Dakotas here on Lake Oahe, that type of thing. Even though we've got 100 feet of water here, they may be in the willows or something of that nature. But it's just amazing how you can find these big fish, and to find out and learn that they're higher in the water column. It makes guys like, I don't even want to call myself a weekend warrior because I don't even fish that much. I wish I could fish more, but the wind was blowing. But and then I could make an excuse. But the crazy thing is, it makes it tougher for us because we used to just strap on a bottom bouncer, throw out a spinner, and go. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to steal the conversation, but the thing that I learned on my last trip out a week and a half ago was I watched the bouncer on. So I used a heavier bouncer on my live scope behind my boat, so I could see how fish reacted to the bouncer. Those fish like the bouncer more than they like my spinner with a worm, a leech, or a minnow. It's amazing. And so I wonder if the spinners just, we've downsized, right? We've gone to the little props, gone to the little blades. We need to go to the bigger blades and get the reaction bite with these spinners now, more so than bringing dinner through, right?
Right. And here's another thing though I've learned with live scope, that it actually hurts probably more people than it actually helps if you rely solely on that. Like back home, Green Bay, Door County, there's so many times where I'm catching fish and you look at live scope and they don't exist. You can see, you pan all over, you are not seeing these fish. They're laying that tight to the bottom. They're laying behind boulders on the sharp breaks. And they're not inactive fish. That's just what they do. These things are hunting gobies. They're not up in the water column. And you'll have guys come past us, and they're scanning and wonder why we're fishing. There's nothing there in their mind, but they're there. They're laying tight to the bottom. And I've seen the best example was the one that Lance and I won to qualify. Schools of walleyes. I mean, we're talking 15, 20, 30 walleyes in these schools in 30 feet of water from 15 feet down right to the bottom, just all big fish. Cast in there, hook one. You watch that whole school settle right to the bottom and just disappear like they didn't exist. Literally 5 minutes later, you watch them in the same spot, rise right back up. They never left. Throw it back in there, you catch one again. It's just
That's amazing.
If you rely solely on that thing to find the fish, it can hurt you more than it can help you. So it definitely has time and place.
It's amazing. You said Door County, so I'm sorry, but I'm going to pop this up. Anybody recognize this place?
Isn't that Howie's Tackle?
Nope.
Nope.
Nope. It's in Algoma. It's the hardware store.
Ah.
Brian's favorite place on earth. We just had Lance join the other half.
Hi, Lance.
The two-time NTC champions.
Hey, everyone.
Hey.
How's it going?
Scott was just going through,
Busy.
like we're talking pork racing and all that, but we kind of got a little background on Scott. Let's get a little background on Lance, on how you got into fishing. We hear you're the technical guy. Scott said he's the meathead and he just throws the jig. And I didn't mean to call you meathead. He did not say he was meathead, but he said I just go out there and throw. And Lance is like analytical and he's got everything dialed in. And let's talk about Lance a little bit.
Yeah, well, don't mind the pink eye. I got that when I got home from the kids, but that's why I'm wearing glasses. But yeah, so I have 3 kids running around with soccer practice and baseball games and all that. So sorry I'm late, but yeah.
Well, that's all right.
I've been walleye fishing for quite a while.
I just checking my schedule to make sure that you don't miss the next podcast. you were on the JMO podcast. You were on with Troy Peterson last night. By the way, or was it last night? Was it puppies that I kept hearing in the background? Did you hear that?
Puppy also. Yep.
Was it your puppy? Okay, somebody's puppy was crying like crazy. I'm like, I wonder what's going on there. But thanks for joining this podcast too. You've been on a bunch.
Yeah, no, that wasn't my dog, but I do have a puppy also.
I think it was Troy's puppies, no doubt. But I didn't mean to change the subject, but I thought, okay, I've got to bring that up because you have been on a lot of podcasts. We gave the limelight to Scott here, which is great because we were talking about the finisher and how he said that he couldn't do anything without you and that you're the main guy. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold the phone.
No.
You're the one that pulled out the finisher and made this happen. So,
absolutely.
So brag on Scott a little bit and then you can talk about yourself.
Yeah. So he can talk all he wants. I am more analytical maybe, but he's just got the raw talent. You put fish in front of him on that live scope and he will put them in the boat. So, it's a great 1-2 punch to have. Have someone that is more analytical, the why, the what, and maybe the where and stuff, and then have the guy that just straight up catches them every time, anywhere he goes. So, no, it's fun, and that's the biggest thing. Like anyone that's wondering about, how do I, who do I fish tournaments with? How do you find a partner? I've had several tournament partners, and I guess you have to get out there and try new things, and when you find the guy that really complements your style, you'll know right away. And that happened right away. The first time I got in the boat with Scott, it was enjoyable. It was just different. And, looking back, it's been several years and it's like, in the blink of an eye, it's gone so fast and it's been great. So if anyone's out there wondering, just keep fishing and you'll bump into the right guy and then you'll know. And, when you find a good one, stick with them. So,
well, it's funny you say that because running tournaments, there's some days I'm also a fishing counselor, and I tell these guys, like, it doesn't work unless you mesh before you get in the boat. You can be 2 of the greatest fishermen in the world, but when you get in the boat together and you're 2 captains or you have 2 different ideas or 2 different game plans, it not necessarily works. And not to probably say anything bad about your other partners that you had in the past, but when you find that connection, when you can be the analytical guy, Scott can be the guy that just goes and catches fish, or vice versa, or whatever it is. And Scott said earlier, we fish better when we're in the same boat. You know,
Absolutely.
he goes, we can practice in two separate boats, but it seems to work together better when we get on the same plan and, you know, same boat, same plan. And you guys you may break down a little more different water than he does, but that's a huge thing as a tournament angler is you can lose it so quick before you leave the boat ramp if you're not in good connection with your partner.
Yep. Yeah, the mental part of fishing is the biggest part that you know it gets overlooked by so many guys. Everyone's worried about what color they're biting and, you know, where do I try and this and that, and just mentally being focused and being able to listen to the fish and then be able to just bounce off what you're thinking off your partner and get that good feedback, you know. And when you got two guys that love to fish, thinking about it and analyzing and bouncing stuff off each other, I mean, you're in a good spot. So I feel like that's why we've been working well together, because we do that, you know, and we're not thinking about, you know, getting off the water and going to the tavern. You know, we're thinking about catching big walleyes, you know, and we don't want to stop. Like we look at each other. Sometimes it'll be 6 o'clock at night. It's like, we got to get up and do this again tomorrow. Let's put the rod down and get back in, you know? So, I mean, it's like we were kids, you know, one more cast, Dad, you know, and that hasn't changed. So.
I mean, that's so great to hear. And you can definitely tell these guys from Wisconsin because he didn't say bar, he said tavern. You know, like,
Yeah, right.
You had to throw the tavern out there. Like, we're getting your geographical by your talk track here. So
Sure.
you got, like I said, I saw Scott earlier, you go out and you not only win one, but you win two and you win it back to backs. And it's not an easy feat. You got to win tournaments to get to this event. Because you're not just showing up and signing up. It's not like one of my tournaments or MWC or NTC. You have to qualify to make your way in here. And we heard Scott was telling a story about big motor blown up on a kicker and a trolling motor. I think people call it like free down the Coast Guard for you guys because they're not making you back in. You know, and to do that, to qualify, to do that, and to keep the mental mindset of we're hosed before we go out. You just went through it, got to your spot, and you got the job done. And then you put 105 pounds up on Green Bay, 80 pounds up on Lake Erie, and forward facing on Lake Erie on top of that. That is just, you know, up until this year, no way would you have thought that. And you guys just did it. You set it up. And, I mean, to figure out that plan, did you go off of what Hoyer did, you know, and the guys in the NWT the few weeks prior and said, we're going to try this, or were you already thinking you were going to forward face before you watched what the NWT did?
You want to take that one, Scott?
Sure. Help me out here, though. Yeah, a lot of this was based off of what the NWT boys did, what Hoyer did. That just gave us the confidence that we could go out there and do that. You know, we're pretty good at jigging, we at least in our minds. And on the way up, actually, there we were listening to podcasts from Hoyer and a few others. Just great information. Everything you could ever want to know is out there if you're willing to look for it and listen to it. But yeah, with what Hoyer said and others about jigging, we just had to use something different. But we tried doing what Hoyer did at first, and I was kind of stuck on that, and I'm glad Lance pulled me off of that because I kept thinking, you know, we had to be out there in this mud, get on these schools of traveling fish. And I mean, you could catch 100 fish days, but they were 14 to 20 inches with the occasional 22 to 26. And if you got lucky, you got a unicorn 28. But there was just no consistency to it. And then that's when Lance, you know, let's go do what we do. And we go fish structure, went up, hit a spot. And sure enough, everything seemed to be bigger. They were now 24 to 27s. And we just carried on from that. You know, we just kept working on that progressively through the week and ended up finding the best spot when I was hoping it was going to be the worst spot. I didn't, because we were watching the winds. Everybody knew what was coming for that event. There were going to be these great big winds. And it was 21 miles to make that run, which isn't anything, but when you're on Erie and you're talking 4 to 6 foot waves, I'm
It's
a little
long
nervous
time.
about that. I'm like, so we roll there, and I'm literally told Lance, like, I'm hoping we catch nothing. Because I was fine with the spot that Lance figured out where we're getting 30 to 35 pounds off Avon. Like, nope. So we go over this place called Fish Haven, and yeah, after fishing for a couple hours, we pull almost 40 pounds the first day just playing around in there. And then we checked it again the next day, but further down the line, and there was more big fish. There was just no end to these big fish up shallow, and to our surprise, that nobody else had really figured out that pattern.
Tell
And
them about.
so did you
gotta
figure
tell
out the
'em about
pattern because of live scope? It was live scope that helped you find those fish and create the
Yeah.
pattern.
Yes, live scope showed us the big fish. We actually, the first day we were up there, we were playing around over by there, out in the deep, catching tons of fish, small ones. And then we took a boat ride over that piece of structure, high-speed graph, and never saw fish, never set down to fish it or whatnot. So when we came back the next time, we actually just sat down, put the live scope down, and there they were. There wasn't many. That's why we didn't see them when we high-speed graph, but they were the right ones, the big ones. So
Yeah, and the one day we were in there, and I think it was the second day that we were really expanding. You know, we kind of knew where the big ones were, and we just went west and east, kind of along the Rock Point, looking to see how big of an area the fish were in. And John Hoyer pulls up, right? And Scott's like, "Oh, don't catch one. Just whatever you do, don't catch one. We don't want him, seeing us here." And so we didn't blind cast at all the whole week, right? We were casting at fish on the live scope the whole time. Well, we didn't want to catch one. So what does Scott do? He starts blind casting. He's not looking at his live scope. He's pitching just random to make it look like he's fishing, because we didn't really want to clue anyone in because we were inside and he was out on the break. And that's where the majority of the boats that we had seen had been working the break of this Rock Point rather than up on the rock flat. And doesn't he cast out, blind cast, and he hooks like I think it was an 8 or 8.5 pounder, right?
yes,
And then
Really?
he's got his drag loose and he's got his rod. He's jigging the rod. He loosened her all the way, and you can hear him ripping his drag going out, acting like he's jigging. He did it for like, I don't know, seemed like 10 minutes playing with this fish till his line was almost all gone.
The only time in your life you're begging it spits it.
Yeah, that one choked it. It wasn't ever going to get off. So eventually we, discreetly landed it in the back of the boat, and it was like an 8.5 pounder. And I'm like, I hope he didn't see that. And I think we actually bumped into John Hoyer on the way back, and I think we told him that story, and I don't think he had any clue that we caught that one. So we got lucky there.
That's awesome.
That was a fun little story for sure.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because if John would have seen you do that, he would have figured out a pattern there pretty quickly. And it'd have been he'd have given you a run, because he is deadly on that forward facing sonar and jigging.
Yeah, and normally, like, we don't worry about who's where or any of that, but it's like, I told Scott, I said, don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Even if, say he is on the same pattern as us, I said, we can still outfish him. Like, the confidence thing. And, we try not to worry about what anyone else is doing, because we can't control it. And it doesn't, the more of your brain power that's going towards wondering and thinking about hypotheticals with other people, the less you're really focused on the fish. So, we did that, we just didn't want them to see us catch one. But other than that, it's like, it is what it is. Let's just focus on the fish. So.
Well, it seems like a winning attitude, Yeah. You've gotta keep doing what you're doing. And frankly, John Hoyer fishing there that's intimidating.
Can be.
Maybe not for you guys. It's intimidating when I run into him at the Bassmaster Classic and try to get a selfie. I'm intimidated, but
sure.
To be on the water and out there, knowing what he knows and knowing what you know, that you're good enough to be better than him, and that confidence. I think it's fantastic. That's a great story.
thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got the number one walleye guy in the nation currently pulls up next to you, and you bluff him out of a fish. I mean, like, that's like bluffing Phil Hellmuth out of a poker hand. Like, and you're the rookie guy. Not saying you're rookies, but like, you're the new guy at the World Series, and you bluffed the best guy in the country out of it. And what a great story. And that, and to not lose your confidence going, oh shit, he's next to us. Like, we just got to do our pattern. No matter if he figures out this pattern, we're going to stay after it, and he's got to beat us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. It's all in the mindset. If you let those hypotheticals creep in and get worried about him being on your fish, and then you get all worked up over nothing, it's not going to help you. So,
yeah.
I mean, we just had a little talk about it. It's like, we're good, and we moved on and caught more.
So day one of the NCC this year was canceled.
Yep.
You find these fish in the pattern. Did you win? Big wins. What's going to happen to our fish? Or did you put in on day two and just know it was game on?
Well, the day we found the fish, initially it was a northeast wind, and that's what the wind was for the small craft advisory when the first day was canceled. So in our mind, it's like, okay, it's going to be good, or if anything, it'll make it better. Blowing in on that rock point will maybe even load more fish into there. And then we went trout fishing for the day in a little trout pond locally. And when we were done with that, we took a spin and looked at the lake shore, and we pulled up on Avon Point, and the mud line was like 2 miles out into the lake, and it was dirty, like water we had never seen the whole week. So then I got nervous. Scott's like, we're going to be okay. But we drove the 15 more miles over to our spot, found a park, got out and walked down and looked at the water just to see what it looked like, at like 5 o'clock the night before the eventual first day of the tournament. And the water was dirty, but it was like the mud line was only maybe a quarter mile out there versus how dirty it was on Avon. So we're like, then we could kind of calm the nerves again and know that we weren't going to run 22 miles or whatever it was and end up in chocolate milk water. So yeah, we did definitely sweat it a little bit, but I'm glad we went and looked at it, or I wouldn't have been able to sleep that night probably after seeing what Avon Point looked like.
A blow day could be a fisherman's worst enemy because you are way too much time to think when you can't be in that boat fishing.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's why we went trout fishing, to take our mind off of it.
Right?
Really, that's a good idea. It's a super idea. I was out on Green Bay last weekend. Well, it would have been a week ago tonight. And that northeast wind coming out of Little Sturgeon Bay.
Yep.
And the crazy thing, I didn't get seasick, but nothing stopped. And it drove me nuts. And fishing was tough. The water temperature, 49 degrees. And I think we're up by Shoemaker Point, or up at Shoemaker, up in that area. And one of the boats had radioed back and said they caught a few. And asked them how much. I said, Jason, ask them what the water temperature is. Well, it was 52.5 degrees. I'm like, pick it up, let's go.
Yep.
And we ended up pulling 226s off of that. But the water was cold. Was the water cold at Erie as well?
It was 58,
Oh,
give or
really?
take, most of the tournament. Yeah. So it was, but I mean, we saw as cold as I think 52 one of the days pre-fishing, where some cold clear water rolled in on a point and it dropped the water, and it was like a, I don't know, 400 or 500 yard stretch of that super cold water, and on either side of it, it was 58. It was real weird.
No kidding.
Yep.
And obviously the fish came out of the warmer water.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. The steelhead were in the colder water.
That makes sense. Right.
Yeah.
So you guys go out there, you win 2 back-to-back. Next year is coming to Lake Francis Case, Bigstown. Do we have any thoughts? Are we going to get a three-peat, or are you like, I'm coming to a South Dakota river, and we're big body. I mean, we're on one of the smaller bodies of water we have in the state down there. What's your mindset going into that? Are you qualified by winning? Are you automatically qualified?
I believe so, yes.
Because a couple years ago when Tyson and Dewey won the NTC, they were not automatically qualified for the next year. I don't know if they've changed that or not, but they weren't. They had to re-qualify to go to Green Bay, and they did, but I don't think they ended up going because of the National Walleye Trail event or scheduling conflict. But So you're qualified. Let's just say you're qualified. You're coming to Lake Francis Case, very southern end. What is your thoughts right now?
What do you think,
Have we
Scott?
we've not thought that far ahead, probably.
I'm gonna be watching the NWT again. When it was out there a couple years ago, but yeah, it was live scoping shallower water. That's where you're catching your bigger fish, and then the trick is gonna be finding those perfect unders, and most of those were out on creek points, deeper water and stuff. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be one again live scoping, hands down. Whether it's gonna be with the finisher or jigging plastic or worms or whatnot, time will tell. But that would be something that we're gonna enjoy. I know, breaking that apart and doing our damnedest to bring the title back to Wisconsin again.
So you've never fished it, right? You've never fished Francis Case at all, ever.
No.
Okay. Okay. So, and
Nope.
Scott, honestly, I'm thinking if you work on it a little bit, you could impersonate Al Linder in a quick hurry.
Well, that's funny you say that, because that is the guy who made me start jigging with jigging rafts out on the bay. Al Linder Show put up a show once. I'm sure you've seen it, where they went out in the summertime jigging blue and chrome jigging rafts, and they whacked them. And we took that, went on the bay, and it just progressed from there. So
Yeah, I really, the way you say that, and I'd love to try to do it myself, but I can't. But I've noticed a couple of times, like, he's got some Al in him. There's no doubt about that. But and maybe that's from, because you're from Wisconsin. I'm not sure, but it's fun. I love listening to you talk. So the whole national team championship coming to South Dakota, you're going to be on the skinny water, the shallow water. Lake Francis Case, was it Lake Francis Case, or was it Lake Sharp that had maybe it was Lake Sharp that had the South Dakota record walleye in it back in '79?
Yeah.
Was it Sharp?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing, catch a state record on Francis Case. I don't think it's been done before.
that'd be a nice goal to have.
Hawaii right now.
I mean, you only have to catch an 18-pounder. How hard can that be?
Crazy.
But no,
It'll be fun. It'll be fun, just like our plans when we went out to Erie. It was Lance has never been there. I haven't been there since I was 13, 14 years old. Actually, last time it was 10 fish a limit. I had a picture of a 33 and a half, a 32, and a couple 31s on the stringer back a long time ago. And I mean, we just went out to Erie with the plans of let's go have fun. It's gonna be a fun fishing trip. We do great. We're gonna try our best, but let's just go have fun. And I think we'll take that same attitude to South Dakota and go learn a whole new body of water. And I'm sure we're gonna have a blast doing that and catch lots of fish.
Well, the cool thing is you can win without catching big fish, without the monsters.
Yeah, that's gonna be one that we haven't done yet. We haven't done a slot event together where you got to make the right choices and what you keep above and below. So
I hate to burst you guys' bubble. It's not going to be 105. It's not going to be 80
Nope.
pounds. I mean, you're gonna be looking at probably that 30, 40 pounds for 3 days down on that body of water, and that's going to be a big weight down there. Just because of that fishery, how it sets up. But there are big fish down there. But it's when you get to that slot thing, going back to that head game, you got to completely change your mentality of, I'm not going to box a 22 or 26 because I know I can get a 27 or 28. And there's a lot more to the head game than just box the biggest fish you can put in the boat.
Yeah. And I've done one slot tournament. I actually fished the NTC when it was on Lake Mille Lacs in Minnesota. And that slot, they had to be under 17 or 1/28. And
they're picky there.
we actually, our strategy for that tournament was to find the perfect unders. We were catching like 16 and a half to 16 and 7/8, 17 and a quarters, those perfect slot fish. And we found some that were fat. And we didn't catch an over all week, right? Well, the first day of the tournament on our spot where these perfect unders were, the slots, whatever you want to call them, we get a 28 and an 1/8 inch walleye. So, of course, we're like in fourth place on the first day. And then the second day, a team ended up fishing right on our spot that saw us catch them. Like, we were catching them, like, I bet you we caught 40 fish on the first day of that tournament. And that other boat was fishing like 100 yards away from us, and they probably caught 10 all day, right? So don't you know what? We had a late boat number on the second day. We get right to our spot, and that boat is sitting right on our waypoints. And they were rigging leeches because it's one rod in Minnesota. They were holding, you know, their Lindy rig, and they would let the current take them one way. They'd spin the boat around and go right back over it. So they never allowed us to even get onto our spot. So long story short, we didn't have a very good. We ended up having a scramble. We had a smaller limit of fish the second day. We made the top 25 cut, and then the third day they didn't make the top 25 cut, so we had the spot to ourselves again, and we had the biggest bag of the top 25 on the last day, and we took second place in that one. We were like 0.8 something pounds away from winning both then. And if we would have just had that spot, you know, it's like,
yeah.
And that wasn't even the worst part. Back in the day then, you could fish the Masters walleye circuit, and in conjunction with the NTC, and it was $600 to enter. And my partner Steve and I at the time, you know, we're like, well, we've never been to Mille Lacs, you know, that's another $600. We were already paying for lodging and this and that, and we didn't put our money in the pot, and neither did the guys that won the tournament. So had we just put $600 in, we would have walked away with 20 grand that day. So, and we had to drive 7 hours home from Minnesota, realizing what we had done. And it was ever since, I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way. You know, if you're confident in yourself, you should be in every big fish pot and side pot and everything you can. You should, you know, I learned that the hard way, and that's stuck with me. So
I've had plenty of guys that do not get in the big fish pot because they think it's bad luck. And they don't get in the side pots because they think it's bad luck. And I'm like, well, you know, thank you. I'm writing 7th place, a side pot check, because you decided that it was bad luck.
Yep.
You know, but hey, you know, it's mental. It's people have superstitions when it comes to fishing, just like they do a lot of other things. And yeah, if you can overcome the mental game and stay cool, calm, and collected out there, you're gonna outfish most of the rest of the field, because you're not in your own head overthinking things. And sounds like you guys are dialed into that. Lance, listen to our podcast, you have a Bible, it sounds like, of all your, you know, different waypoints, and you put in colors and depths and all that when you put a waypoint in your graph. I never even thought about doing that. Just mark a waypoint, and that's what I do. But that was pretty interesting to listen to on that podcast, that you don't even write down your book, you also put it on your graph.
Yep. Yeah. And then like another thing I'll do, a lot of guys probably don't do this, and maybe I shouldn't tell the world this, but like, say you go fishing a day, and you know, you put waypoints in throughout the day, you're catching fish, you don't have time to necessarily put everything in that you want. But if I get like a half hour when I get home, I can look at my trails and I can relive, you know, kind of the day, how it went, and then I can add those details in at home. And then I can delete the irrelevant waypoints that, oh yeah, I put a waypoint in here, but I never went and changed the number on it, so it must have been a sheep head or whatever. And you know, it's kind of like waypoint maintenance. And then like Scott's good about it too with symbols. Like I like, you know, so today I go out and pre-fish, and say I'm pre-fishing the same area. Well, today it's a northeast wind, so I'm going to make my waypoint a certain symbol. And then tomorrow I'm fishing the same spot, and it's a totally different wind or different weather. It's sunny or whatever the difference is. I have different icons for different days. So then I kind of, you know, if things are changing or if the fish are migrating, you can kind of almost, it'll jump out at you just by looking at your waypoints. So, I mean, there's a lot you can do with waypoints if you're paying attention to kind of, you know, especially when you're in a pre-fishing situation where you're fishing multiple days in a row. That's when it's really the most relevant to, you know, do those little things that really kind of will help steer you in the right direction.
You know, so keeping that Bible, or that I've got a diary that I kept in 2013, 14, and 15. Somebody else's phone is ringing, not mine. But I found the patterns. Like no matter what I did, no matter what the weather was like, if the pressure was 30.02, whether pressure was falling or rising, that's when I caught fish. And so do you find those, do you go looking for those patterns in your Bible?
So generally speaking, I don't track the pressure. For ice fishing, I track the pressure, and I feel like it plays a lot more in cold water, or like, I kind of relate it to low pressure, high pressure, right? You can tell when a low pressure comes in, you got rain coming in. When you got a high pressure, it's bluebird skies. So I kind of, I pay attention to that. And generally speaking, your high pressure days are tougher fishing. The day that we're supposed to have a line of storms coming through today they're going to be biting. That's just generally speaking how fish act. And the beauty of walleyes is they're so wind dependent. That's why I love catching them, because they're so hard to stay on, because they're constantly moving, and they're not worried about being on a waypoint. They're worried about what the wind's doing right now, right? And the wind pushes them to where they feel they can feed. So for me, it's just trying to have that big picture mindset of, okay, well, I can look at 3 days before I'm going to pre-fish and see, well, it's going to be this wind. And I can go back through my notes and say, okay, well, this is where I need to focus, because the wind's going to do this and it's going to set the fish up like this. So, I mean, it's really valuable to have that. For me, I don't look at it as much as I'd like to, with just busy life in general. So I have all the notes, I have all the info, but I don't necessarily always get to reflect on it before tournaments. That's why fishing less tournaments in a year for me is really beneficial, because I can prepare a lot better, a lot more thoroughly for the few tournaments rather than 6 or 8 a year. So, but yeah, the prep work definitely helps.
Chasen, I gotta ask Scott this. We had a guest on earlier this year, a couple weeks ago, and his partner said he's truly analysis by paralysis type of guy. And I'm feeling that with Lance right now. Like, it's all data, and he's seeing everything through, and analysis by paralysis. Like, there's never a decision in that boat that he hasn't thought through. And then you're just the guy that gets.
Yeah.
Can you
What's that?
Go ahead.
Can you overthink?
I was just saying, can you overthink it?
No, you can never overthink. I mean, I just look at this way, whether the weather's high pressure, bluebird, sunny, flat, calm, thunderstorming, whatnot. I get to go fishing. I'm happy. I'm grabbing a rod, running out the door. Yeah, but like, you'll take into conditions in concern, like sunny out, obviously flashy, probably gonna be fishing the bottom, like back at home. What Erie does, I don't know. We really didn't get those conditions. But yeah, it's the little bit that I can remember in my head. I used to write stuff down. I've gotten horrible. I hardly ever do that anymore, which is a bad habit. But nope, I just pretty much today where I get to go fishing, so I'm just gonna go out, and I don't care what the conditions are. It might be bad fishing, but something bites, I'm happy.
That's half the fun, right? I mean, that's half the battle, is trying to trick something with a brain this big.
Yeah, right.
To bite your hook. Like, that's half the battle. These things are 10 times smarter than we are most days.
Mm-hmm.
That's half
right.
the battle, is tricking a thing with a tiny brain to bite our hook.
I think of how we've progressed in our career. I mean, when we all started out fishing, it was live bait dominated. I mean, you can't catch walleyes with artificial lures, and other than Lance with his depth jig and that half crawler, I mean, it's all artificials now. It's whether it's plastics, blade baits, or finishers or whatnot. So
It's a reaction bite more so than you're not looking for feeding fish. You're looking to piss a fish off, right?
Yeah. If you were to put these baits in these fish's face and just twitch it, make it look normal, you're not gonna get these things. They're probably gonna follow it, chase it. They might nip at it. But you start throwing in some crazy, not excessive riffs, but just a little different stuff here and there, and then you're triggering them. They're just coming up and eating a dying bait that looks like an alewife or shad or perch or goby, whatnot. That's all it is.
It's interesting. It's just changed. Everything's changed so much. It's crazy, but it's fun to be able to figure them out. Isn't it easier, especially with live scope now or with live sonar? it's a little easier to figure them out. And I don't know if fish have changed over the years because a lot of them have been raised in concrete tanks, rather than being raised naturally. But walleye are everywhere anymore.
Yeah, it's picket
I mean,
Lance.
I think they chase baits, right? I mean, they chase bait. And I think the big thing like we overlook with jigging wraps or jigging techniques is, on your live facing sonar, you can see it. A fish comes through a school of bait. They don't just swim straight ahead. They go every direction to get away from that thing. So when you're doing that erratic cadence out there, you're more mimicking the bait than just pulling something straight ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can read the moods, like especially on Lake Erie. You could read the mood of the fish, right? So you would throw it on their head, and if they reacted to it and started following it, and they were being real lazy, you just would maybe slow your cadence down a little bit, And if you're jerking it and they're following it down, they're following it up, you keep it aggressive because they're tracking it, they're very interested in it, and then eventually they would eat it. So I mean, just the degree of knowledge you can gain from forward-facing sonar, I mean, it's incredible. If we would have tried to blind fish that area that we had for the tournament, we would have been lucky to get probably 25 pounds out of there, if I had to guess. Because I mean, they weren't all at 10 feet down, they weren't all at 15 feet down. They're at different levels in the water column. They're swimming around. And the clarity was like 3 to 4 feet. So if you weren't getting it right in their face, they didn't even see it, sense it, nothing. So it's just the precision that you can fish with, knowing exactly where the fish are and knowing exactly which ones you want to even cast at. I mean, that you can't do that. You can't do that trolling either. And that's the other reason that it's winning on Erie, because I mean, you're handpicking which ones you're throwing at. So you can't do that with 6 boards in the water.
And the thing about it is we also, people say, oh, it's cheating, it's cheating, it's cheating. I mean, you can see the fish on there. That's right. But you still have to make them bite.
Yeah, we're not snagging them. They're still biting.
That's the biggest thing is you just said it there. You're reading the fish. Yes, we're not doing that trolling or 2D, but we've always read the fish in 2D or side imaging, just not like we are in forward facing, but you still have to make that fish bite. And let's be honest, how many fish you drop a bait on, no matter what you do, they swim and go the other way. There's
enough of them.
It happens more time than not, right? I mean, you can do everything in the world. This winter ice fishing, we're sitting out there in the lodge, and I'm watching them come in, and one time you'd be jigging them, and one would smack it, and the next one would swim past it, but they'd swim up and hit a dead bait. Or you just don't, you don't know. You just don't know what they're going to do. And I guess we're learning. So I guess we have an advantage, but I don't see it as bad as people think it is. And I always go back to, if you want to get rid of forward facing, we should have started with GPS mapping. When that came out, we should have banned that. And then we should have banned spot lock. And, them two things, in my opinion, are more deadly than forward facing sonar is ever going to be. The fact that we can sit in your garage and look at your map and know where to go. We had Tyson on talking about lining up contours of shores and imagining what's out there in the water. Now we can see it. Now it's a map that shows exactly where to go.
Yeah, and the other thing, like you mentioned, there's days where you can have live scope, you can have the best mapping, you can have the best notes, and you can cast on them and you can try 30 baits and they just flat out will not bite. We've all been there. I mean, not so much on Erie. I mean, those fish seem to always bite, but like a lot of local lakes around here, I've had days where it's like, even like king salmon. Like I love fishing king salmon when they first come in the marinas and stuff in the fall to spawn. And last fall I had a day and I must have threw a bink spoon. I tried jig and plastic. I tried so many different things. And I, crankbaits, they track it to the boat, these big kings. And they were just, even threw skein at them. I mean, we threw everything that we could think of. They would follow your bait. They would nip your bait. They'd follow it up and down. They'd race down at the bottom. You'd swear they're going to eat it. And I think we caught 2 salmon in like 10 or 11 hours of fishing. And one was in the first 10 minutes we were there. And it's like, you know, it's almost like you wish you didn't have forward facing sonar to know how many are there and not biting, because it was darn frustrating.
right.
So that happens too.
So, well, guys, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you guys on. Can't wait to see you guys come out to our home state of South Dakota. And I just want to throw this out there. You're going to have some pretty tough South Dakota boys coming down. And, you know, not saying you didn't have tough competition, but there's going to be some boys that don't want to see you take a trophy back to Wisconsin. But, you know, I'll be rooting for you deep down. I got to root for my South Dakota boys, but I'll be rooting for you guys deep down because, you know, back-to-back, as far as we know, has never been done. And we definitely know a three-peat has never been done. So that would be
I hope you get it.
Epic event.
I hope you get it. It's been a ton of fun. The last hour's gone by so fast. I can't believe we've been doing it for an hour. So thank you.
But
Thank
you guys.
you know, we're not done yet. We're going to say goodbye to Scott and Lance, and we're going to bring on some young guns and switch gears a little bit and talk a little bass fishing. So, guys, thank you for your time
Thank
tonight.
you.
And
right.
we enjoyed it. We look
Fantastic.
forward to hearing from you guys in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks. Have a great night.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Well, we ready for these next two?
Yeah, I think you've got them in the studio there, don't you?
We got 'em right here
Hello,
with
boys.
us. We have
Chasen
Steele and Jackson Goodman here. So these two boys went out this last weekend and put up 17 pounds of smallmouth on Lake Sharp for the Bass Nation high school and junior state championships, and they won the junior division. Look at those tiger stripe small ice.
Nice.
Guys, let's talk about this a little bit. Before we get there, let's, you know, your dads are over here in the corner, but, you know, let's talk about, you know, Jackson, how did you get into fishing and bass fishing? I don't think your dad he barely knows how to catch a walleye, let alone a bass. He's a pike master. We give him that, but you got into bass fish. Let's talk about this a little bit.
So I've always been in the outdoors, you know, fishing, hunting, whatever. You know, some of my youngest memories are pike fishing or netting walleyes for my dad off my grandpa's dock. But me and Chasen have been friends for 4 or 5 years. We played sports together, and one day his dad Shane asked us if we wanted to go bass fishing, and I was like, why not? You know, whatever. And we went out and caught fish, and you know, ever since then.
So
it's really, my dad really doesn't have much to do with my bass fishing, but
He's a pike guy though, so.
But
yeah.
he also got you into.
He is the one who got me into fishing though.
I mean, you guys pulled up into my house here, fresh off a paddle fishing trip. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you guys came from down on Francis Case after paddle fish. So, I mean, the experiences that you've grown up with in the outdoors just led you into the bass fishing side of things.
Yep.
And to be able to diversify yourself and go out and learn this, would you say you prefer bass fishing over any other style, or you just like fishing in general?
You know, all of every type of fishing I do, they all have their pros and cons, you know. I do like bass fishing is amazing. I love bass fishing, but pike fishing, walleye fishing, you can't really pick a favorite. I mean, I like them all.
And Chasen, I mean, do you know what a walleye looks like? I know your dad. I don't think he left those things in the boat.
I catch a couple here and there on West, but they're pretty thick over there. But
so, what's your background, Chasen? I mean, obviously your dad's a bass fisherman and growing up in South Dakota. I don't know much about you. I know Jackson pretty well, so let's hear a little bit about you and how you got to winning this.
yeah, so just been growing up in the outdoors like Jackson too, and then going to little farm ponds with my grandpa and dams. Just really fun fish for bass. I like You can throw whatever at them and they'll eat it. Just going out with my dad every here and there in the summer, it's fun. Now before facing Solna, you can just see them bite. It's pretty cool.
It kind of changes the game, and so you guys not only won this one, you won the one you won a couple years ago or 2 years ago. And so, what is it like? Just so people are out there watching, or kids for next year, like go through that. Like it doesn't take anything. It's $42, a $12 membership to Bass. You get a magazine, you get all that stuff, and then the $30 thing to go there. You go out, you win the tournament, you can get a trophy, and you can go on to nationals, the youth nationals. This year it's in Lake Chickamauga in Dayton, Tennessee, and you guys can work your way there and go up and fish these things and continue to grow. But I mean, what's it like getting to that boat ramp? A lot of us know what it's like to pull up the boat ramp for a bigger, a normal tournament or the Pike Masters or even the Willinell Lunker. But what's it like when you guys pulled up that boat ramp in the morning? You're getting ready to go out. What's your mindset of going into the day?
Well, so I have some experience fishing tournaments. I think mainly this year pulling up the boat ramp, I was pretty confident, I guess, because we'd won it.
Because you're fishing against me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, at least we're not getting last place here.
But I guess I don't really have much to be very nervous about because I'm getting guided. I'm in the boat, and I guess the nerves don't really affect me.
Now, if you guys
Good from a kid.
do decide to go on to the next one, do you think that's going to change when you pull up to the nationals?
Definitely.
There's like 600 kids at this event.
Yeah.
Like, you're not in your home state. You're not on your home water. You're traveling to Dayton, Tennessee to fish Lake Chickamauga. Like, that has got to be like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you're fishing against kids that have fished this lake every day instead of people like Kurt fishing against us. So. But yeah, definitely a lot more nerves there. But
so Chasen, you get out there. Did you have any nerves going into this, or you're like, Dad has got this dialed. This is his water. Watch out.
Yeah, we went out on Friday just fishing around, looking. We had a pretty good day, so I felt pretty good about it. Bass fishing is what I do, so I felt pretty good about it.
So you get out there, you go out. You guys are obviously live scoping on forward facing. Jackson, you kind of told me before the tournament, a couple years prior, Shane's like, cast there 30 feet, cast there.
Yep.
Like video game fishing these things. It's got to be a lot of fun. I mean, you guys, you don't only won the tournament for the youth side, you also weighed the biggest weight out of all the kids there, even the high school kids. And, Sam Spice, who we've had on the show, and Max Flatten, who tour around the country and do this. I mean, they're all over the place, and you beat them by 4 pounds.
Yeah.
Or 3 pounds, sorry.
Like that, yeah.
Goody's turn to be boat captain. Yeah, I agree. Then I might stand a chance, Peter.
Yeah.
When you pull up on these fish, you're out there. Like, if you're a kid that's just looking to do this, and like Jackson, your side of it is, you've grown up in the outdoors, you fish, but you never really bass fished until you met Chasen. Like, tell somebody that just wants to get out there and do it. Eric Storm said at the event, like, if you have any friends, let them know. Tell them about this event, and we'll find boats for you.
So, yeah, I guess to get into bass fishing, there's obviously different techniques that you have to use. Like, if you're a walleye fisherman, you're not going to do the same things as when you're bass fishing, but it's, it's not a really about whatever. You can just throw it. It's not a very difficult thing to join a tournament, you know, it's about having fun and catching fish. But for a kid that wants to join, definitely.
Yeah, and I felt terrible for the two boys in my boat, but they got pizza afterwards, and we did catch one fish. And in my defense, I had fish on the live scope. They just didn't connect with them, and I'm pretty sure they were carp because we caught a carp.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell them that. So I hope they're not watching this to know that I was like, oh, after that carp was caught, like, we got to go because we got to find some more fish. But, you know, you go out there and you do this, and it's just everybody there was like, there was no resentment towards anybody. Everybody was excited.
Yeah.
And it's an open thing to anybody. I mean, if you don't have a boat, reach out to, you know, Eric Storms or myself or Shane or any of these guys, and somebody will find a boat to put you in because they're growing the future of the sport and trying to get these kids to continue to do this. And, you know, did you go back to, I mean, you didn't go back to school because you were out, but like, what do your buddies say to you when they hear you win this, or they're like, oh, what are you doing fishing a bass tournament? Like,
Yeah, so I get some grief from family members or friends like, geez, you're switching over to bass fishing now. I thought you were a walleye fisherman, but you know, it's cool because when people acknowledge that, I guess, because you don't think it's that big a deal, but
you know, like I tell people, it don't matter if it's a bullhead or a bluegill or a bass or a walleye, it's fishing.
Yep.
Right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's fishing, and we're all out sharing the love of fishing.
Yep.
And, you know, you make some of your best friends, your lifelong friends, honestly, in the outdoors. You know, I guarantee if I look over at your two dads, some of their fondest memories in their whole life involve being outside hunting or fishing. And you two will remember these memories or have new memories or make these memories with your buddies or your dads or whatever it is. And that's some of the best memories. I don't remember the video game I played, I mean, on Nintendo back in the day. Like, I don't remember that time, but I do remember that first duck I shot or that first walleye I caught. Or, I mean, one of my earliest memories of fishing is bluegills off our dock in Minnesota with sweet corn.
Yeah.
My grandma gave me a can of corn and a hook and said, go to the dock. And then my dad was mad because I made every bluegill I caught.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of people on pretty social, but my best friends are the people that I hunt, fish with. You know,
That's cool from a kid.
There's not a lot of people outside that I really spend a whole lot of time with because I'm hunting and fishing a lot.
That's awesome. Well, let's admit, bass is where it's at, though.
Bass hurts, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right, two young bass fishermen. We got the Bass Cup coming up in 2 weeks. Do we have any predictions on 6 smallmouth out of Lake Oahe, what it's going to take to weigh each day? What would you guys have to guess going into this tournament?
Probably around 20, 21 pounds.
20, 21 pounds for 6? Because you weighed 5 at 17, so that's probably pretty accurate. Jackson, you got?
Yeah, maybe a little bigger. I know there's some bigger ones lurking in Hawaii, but
Jackson, you talk your dad into fishing the Bass Cup with you?
No.
You just let.
No, that came pretty quick.
That was a pretty hard no. You
Yeah.
think you should let you two take dad's boat and go do it? Do you feel like you get a better chance there?
Yeah.
So, well, guys, I mean, if you had to say one thing to a kid out there that's even thinking about doing it, what would it be?
Just to try it, give it a shot. It's really fun. Go for it.
I mean, so we've all had them bad days, and I mean, you can have a bad day. I have 95% bad days when I fish. I'm better at talking about fishing than I am catching fish. I've admitted that for years. But don't get discouraged because, you know, go after them and you'll catch one. I mean, even if you catch a bullhead while you're out there, it's a tug of the line and keep trying and continue. You know, you'll get better. Practice. Like we listen to those guys tonight. Like, you know, I gave that guy a little crap by paralysis by analysis, but he really, truly tried. I mean, you can tell it's his passion to try to outsmart these fish. And it's really what it is. You know, and it doesn't matter if you're 14 years old like you two boys, or you're, you know, a touring elite series guy. Everybody has a bad day on the water. Just get up and do it again tomorrow and try to improve.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, you have plenty. You have plenty of days.
Bad days are gonna happen. Just
Kind of like today paddle fishing. I
Yeah,
heard we hooked
that,
up
for
one.
sure. For sure.
What was today like paddle fishing? Like I heard your dad helped land another guy.
Well, yeah, I got to watch my dad land other people's paddlefish, and then I'd go to their spot. But yeah, I had one hooked, but you know the rocks in there are pretty jagged.
But you caught one this year, or how many you got?
I caught one this year in the White River with
Yeah. So,
Willie.
but all right, guys. Well, we appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing the future of this. See where you guys go. Chasen, we're going to work a little on interviews off camera. We're going to get you a little more interview ready. Jackson, like maybe if Jackson wanted to sit beside you, we could have got a little more. I've known Jackson a long time. He doesn't fall from his Uncle Benny's tree and his dad. Either his dad or Uncle Benny have never met a Mike they didn't like. That's what our good buddy Pat says. So
I love it. Thanks, fellas.
So thank you guys. We will see you and hopefully talk to you in the near future.
That's awesome. All right. Take care.